Wir fangen um Punkt 10 an. Yeah, there is information about.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm interested in.
Judy Wayne, welcome. That you made.
Ich habe die Susi gefragt, sie möchte gerne essen.
Keine Ahnung, nach der Gender. Aber diese
Oh, dann weiß ich nicht, wenn du noch mehr weißt, wie bist du auf die gekommen?
Can you give me?
Die heißt Anna Niesbach. Und
It's like going to the gym. Boston.
hallo!
Nice to meet you.
Ja, Angelika.
My wife. We were so much busy.
Can get everything back by the first. Ach, das war auch.
Also wir haben
If you're there, the pictures will all be there. No worries. Yeah.
Das ist, wenn man denkt, China kommt. Aber es ist
Ja, ganz herzlichen Dank Michael Hohling und Guido Spitz an den Fagotten für die kleine musikalische Einleitung. Meine Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie ganz herzlich zur Verlegung der Stolpersteine hier für Martha und Elsbeth Bodenheimer, die hier in der Schumannstraße 64 ihren letzten frei gewählten Wohnort hatten. Mein Name ist Martin Dill. Und seien Sie alle im Namen der Stolperstein-Initiative Frankfurt herzlich willkommen. Welcome you everybody for the laying of the stumbling stones here in Schumannstraße 64, which was the last home in Frankfurt for Martha and Elsbeth Bodenheimer. I'm particularly happy that Judy Wayne from Massachusetts, USA, traveled to Frankfurt in honor to her mother and grandmother. Ich bin sehr froh, dass ich Judy Wayne begrüßen kann aus Massachusetts, USA, die extra für die Verlegung der Steine für ihre Mutter und Großmutter hier nach Frankfurt gekommen ist. Herzlich willkommen. Natürlich begrüße ich auch ganz herzlich Gunther und Katja Demnig. Gunther Demnig, der vor vielen Jahren die Idee der Stolpersteine entwickelt hat, die mittlerweile europaweit ein solches Ausmaß angenommen hat als größtes dezentrales Kunstwerk und dezentrales Mahnmal der Welt, dass Gunther demnächst seinen sage und schreibe 100.000. Stolperstein in Europa verlegen wird. I also welcome Gunther Demnig, the artist, and his wife Katja. Gunther not only invented the idea of the Stolpersteine, but also already installed many Stolpersteine all over Europe, every country where German Nazis did persecute people, and in a short time he will lay his 100.000th Stolperstein in Europe. Gunther wird in den nächsten 2 Tagen, heute und am Montag, hier in Frankfurt Stolpersteine verlegen. Am Dienstag dann, soweit ich weiß, in Offenbach. Und wir werden am Dienstag noch weitere Stolpersteine enthüllen in Frankfurt, die wir selbst verlegt haben. Und insgesamt wird es 83 neue Stolpersteine nach diesen 3 Tagen in Frankfurt geben. We will lay about 83 Stolpersteine in Frankfurt in these 3 days, and Gunther will personally install these Stolpersteine today and tomorrow. Ich möchte auch noch begrüßen Renate Rauch, die Stolpersteine für Martha und Elsbeth Bodenheimer initiiert hatte, zusammen mit Judy Wayne und Angelika Rieber, auch von der Initiative Jüdisches Leben, die uns im Anschluss gleich ein paar biografische Daten und biografische Informationen zum Leben von Martha und Elsbeth Bodenheimer geben wird. Sie wird es in Englisch vortragen. Sie finden aber die deutsche Version in den kleinen Infoblättern, die wir Ihnen verteilt haben. I welcome Renate Rauch and Angelika Rieber from the Initiative Jüdisches Leben, and Angelika will read the biography in English, and the German translation is available in the leaflets. Ebenso möchte ich noch begrüßen Schülerinnen und Schüler der Europäischen Schule in Frankfurt. Ich glaube, mir steht da hinten, die extra heute zu den Verlegungen heute Vormittag kommen und sich das anschauen mit ihrer Lehrerin Antonella Canata. Vielen Dank, dass ihr extra gekommen seid. I also welcome students of the European School in Frankfurt who came particularly for this and for the next 2 or 3 layings of Stolpersteine. Ja, dann gebe ich jetzt gern das Mikrofon weiter an Angelika Rieber, die uns ein bisschen was jetzt über Martha, Amanda und Elsbeth Bodenheimer erzählen wird.
Today remember Elsbeth and Amanda Bodenheimer, her mother and grandmother. And we are very glad that Judy was able to come. It was not clear a few weeks ago that she really would be able to come. And I would like to say a few words about the biography of the family members, and then how we met each other, how Renate and I met your mother. Elsbeth, her mother, was born in Frankfurt in 1919. Her father, Jacob, died early when she was 3 years old. He had owned a paper mill in Frankfurt, here in Bockenheim. His wife, Amanda, came from Kaiserslautern. She was born in 1883, and she came from a banking family, the family Neumond. She was one of 14 children of Leopold Neumann and his wife Ida. And this is a photo of Jacob and Amanda, which I want to show to you. Jacob and Martha had 3 children. The eldest daughter, Gretel, was born 1904, the son Hans in 1914, and the baby Elsbeth born 1919. The family belonged to the Western Synagogue, and they were very close to the Rabbi Salzberger, whom they met afterwards. I think you were with them in London, where he lived afterwards. The Bodenheimers first lived in Sophienstraße 12, and from 1931 on to here in Schumannstraße 64. Elsbeth attended the nearby Victoria Schule, which doesn't exist as a building anymore and has a different name. So this is the Victoria Schule, how it looked like just around the corner here. It's today Bettina Schule. She liked to go to this school, and so it was really hard for her that she had to leave the school in 1934. She wanted to become a teacher and a music teacher, and so she wanted to attend the conservatory, but she was not allowed to, and so she got private lessons, because she wanted to become a piano teacher. She then went to the Philanthropien, the liberal Jewish school, and it was very hard for Elsbeth because they had different languages. So she left the school early and began an apprenticeship as a seamstress. In 1937, with the support of a cousin, she was able to flee to the United States. Her mother, Martha Bodenheimer, followed her daughter in June 1938. The business, the Neumond business, declined after 1933 because the Jewish banks were boycotted. So the bank house Neumond in at Taunusanlage 6, also not far from here, had to cease operation. Martha's brother Adolf Neumann, who was once the managing director of the bank, was no longer able to deal with his account Sicherungsanordnung from September 38 on. He was arrested during the boycott in November 1938 and was taken to the Festhalle. He was released because he was old and because they they arrested men between 16 and 60, and so he was able to be released in the evening. He and his wife Johanna fled in August 39 via England to the United States. They never received their belongings. The belongings were confiscated in Antwerp in 1942. The constant humiliation had its effect, so he died of a heart attack in New York in 1941. Now back to Elsbeth. New York was a big disappointment at the beginning. First, she was accommodated with an aunt, then with her brother. She made a living as a tailor, a nanny, a physician's assistant. She was far from her dream job, becoming a teacher. But Elsbeth managed to continue her education in evening schools and attended music courses. There, she met her future husband. Elsbeth did not become a ski instructor, also a dream of her, but she became a music teacher, and she was well known as a music critic. Her brother Hans, who was born in Frankfurt in 1914, was forced to end his medical studies in Frankfurt and fled to the United States in March 1935. But he was not able to continue his education and his studies. He died very early, in the age of 34. I think you never met him. You never met him. So, Elsbeth, accompanied by you and your brother and sister as well, came to Germany in 1963. The reason why Elsbeth wanted to come was to meet her former nanny. And then, 30 years later, she followed the invitation of the city of Frankfurt, who invites constantly former Frankfurt citizens, and now, since 2012, also the descendants of former Frankfurt citizens. And this was how Renate and I met Elsbeth during her visit in Frankfurt, because our project Jewish Life in Frankfurt organizes meetings with students in schools, does research, even more with the second generation now. And we try to document and publish all the stories we got known of. Yes, and since that time, Renate and Elsbeth were very close. Renate visited Elsbeth and also Judy in the United States. And since the two daughters came in 2014 and 2015, I also knew the daughters, and since that time we constantly email and sometimes meet either here or in Frankfurt. And I think this is the most important thing, that the second generation also feels a link to the place where their ancestors have been born. And so it is important for Judy to remember what happened to her family, but it's also important for us to remember and also to keep the contact with the next generation. And now I want to forward to Judy.
Vielen Dank, Angelika. So Judy, you want to say a few words? Very close.
Guten Morgen. My name is Judy Wayne, and I'm the daughter of Elsbeth Bodenheimer Wayne and the grandmother of Martha Neumann Wayne. I would like to thank Dr. Martindale and everyone involved in the Stolperstein Initiative for this wonderful honor today. I would also like to thank my sponsor, Renate Rauch, without whom this would not have been possible. I am also thanking Angelika Reber for the presentation. My family has known Renate since 1993, and she stayed with my parents in Western Mass, where I grew up, and with me in Boston in 2009. When it was my turn to be invited to participate in the Citizens of Frankfurt, or as we know it, the Survivor Program, Renate was also my sponsor, as she was for my mother in 1993. I learned so much from Renate when I came that I went home shaking my head, realizing how little I knew about my own family. She has done so much to make today's speech possible and to be here for my family and me. It is said, I'm not sure by whom, that all happy families are happy in the same way, but all unhappy families are different in unique ways. While I am grateful that my family was able to escape Hitler's horrors, living with a Holocaust survivor, as with my survivor mother, was very difficult. And while I am so grateful that she survived, my childhood was painful and lonely. My mother and grandmother suffered terribly from the abuse that they went through, starting at age 10 when she attended Victoria Schule, and every few weeks being told she had to leave the school, and a few weeks later being told she was allowed to return. I thought this may have happened for a few weeks. I did not realize it went on for 5 or 6 years. And finally, my grandmother removed her to philanthropy, which only lasted for a short time, as Angelika mentioned. When my mother reached the United States, she did something not many people did at that time, as she was still considered an enemy alien. But she enrolled in New York University, where she received her bachelor's degree in music education. She then met my father They went on to receive their master's degrees and then attended an Ivy League college, one of 7 in the United States, Columbia University, where they received their doctorate of music education. Unfortunately, the recruiters told both of my parents that they were wonderful candidates for jobs, but that they had 2 strikes against them. They were Jews and they were Jews. They were told to change their names in order to be employed, because my last name would be Fishkin. So my father changed his name to his mother's maiden name of Wine, W-E-I-N, and then anglicized it to Wayne, so I could basically be anything, anywhere. Then they were able to get jobs, but my mother had tremendous post-traumatic distress because she didn't want to live anywhere closer than 3 miles to a neighbor. She lived on a huge farm, and she had a 4-acre garden, and she was either in the garden or she was playing music or dealing with her students on weekends. My parents also had a 13-piece jazz band, which is great for them, but I was living alone on a dirt road 3 miles away from our nearest neighbor, so it was impossible for me to grow up having any friends. There were no cell phones back in those days, and there was only 1 car per family, and this car barely existed. As soon as I finished high school in Pittsfield, I moved to Boston, and I never looked back. My grandmother came from a very wealthy family. The Neumann family, where my grandmother was one of 14 siblings, had 2 brothers who went to New York before the war, and they got involved in commodities. They returned from New York and gave each of the siblings $1 million in pre-war dollars, and they opened up the Neumann Bank. Unfortunately, when Hitler came to power, the bank was seized by the Dresdner Bank. I sent for all of the paperwork, and had it translated right down to the words Heil Hitler, which still turns my stomach when I hear it. I put my mother in a class action suit, but when she died, the suit was dismissed, claiming that it did not extend to heirs. My mother talked very little about her upbringing, but she did talk a lot about her favorite uncle, Rudolf Bodenheimer, who was a very famous opera singer who traveled the world with Enrico Caruso. I sent Angelica a picture. I'm not sure if you have it with you, but it's a picture, it's an etching that Enrico Caruso did of Ludolf, and it said on it, Ludolf, a wonderful singer, but a fat pig, because he was a rather large man. Unfortunately, between the airport and flight, I lost my folder that had my pictures and everything else I wanted to share. I only found out 7 years ago from Renata when I was coming here for the program that I had a cousin, Ludolf's granddaughter, who was within 6 months of my age. So I traveled to Munich to meet her, and I invited her to attend today, but for her it was not possible. And I guess there was a lot of strain on the family for him to survive, because the Nazis allowed him to stay because of his talent in singing. And again, this isn't confirmed to me, but this is what my mother had told me. Anyway, I want to thank my new friend Greta for coming, and Akim for coming and celebrating this event with us. And I've probably discussed my family enough, and I would like to close by saying that my mother always said that there would be another Holocaust in our time. And to remind everyone, that we are getting closer and closer to a fascism in my country. And what happens in America seems to go around the world. I also want to state how grateful I am that the city of Frankfurt now has a living memorial to my family, and I finally have some closure. Thanks to all who made this possible.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you for your touching words. 2 Blümchen haben wir da für Martha und für Elsbeth je eine. Zum Abschluss unserer Stolpersteinverlegung in Frankfurt sprechen wir immer ein paar Worte des Gedenkens. For the closure of our little ceremonies in Frankfurt, usually we speak some words of remembrance, and I will do so in German and English. Durch das Gedenken sollen diejenigen wieder dazugehören, die einst von hier gewaltsam verjagt wurden. Wir versammeln uns gemeinsam um diese Steine, um die Seelen, die hier einmal wirkten, wieder in unsere Mitte aufzunehmen. Von nun an sollen sie wieder in unserer Mitte sein, wo sie eben waren, bevor sie von hier aus ihren Leidensweg gehen mussten. Wir trauern um sie und um den Verlust, welchen wir uns selbst erst mit ihrem Ausschluss und dann mit dem Vergessen darüber zugefügt haben. Through this remembrance, those who are once forcibly expelled from here shall again be included. We gather together around these stones to welcome back into our midst the souls of those who once lived here amongst us. From now on, they shall be back in our midst again, where they were before they had to go their way of suffering from here. We mourn for them and also for the loss we have caused ourselves, first with their exclusion and then with the forgetting about it. Mhm.